IHMS.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. De-colonizing the gates of Harar, lest we forget. Each year, January 7th marks the commemoration of the fallen Harari heroes and partners in 1887. As we remember their martyrdom, I would like to highlight and create awareness about a piece of Harar's history, a piece of history hijacked and distorted. Today my focus is on the gates of Harar. Peace and the 5 gates in Ethiopia are synonymous with Harar. Harar has 5 legitimate gates, but the illegitimate 6th gate is famous and appears to represent Harar's image since 1942. The 6th gate is the gate of occupation and the symbol of repression. Hijna Beri, that robbed Harar's Islamic identity. It is a misrepresentation of Harar for the last 80 years. How and why? Harar has been significantly diminished physically, culturally, politically, and economically for the last 136 years, and what is left of it, the tiny Harari regional state, is being terrorized and slowly absorbed by expansionists today. Visible hypocritical hands and invisible friendly fire are consuming Harar's values and properties. Its language, culture, land, heritage, and history are being hijacked and fabricated nowadays. In an expected proportion, Harar is facing political minimization and historical pollution. Its existential threats are political mafias and deceptive historians. The political mafias who support land-grabbing anarchists intending to further depopulate and displace Hararis. And deceptive historians are busy manipulating, hijacking, fabricating, and polluting Harar's history. Harar is continuously absorbing the effects of disruptive political, social, and economic pressures. Just because Hararis are a visible minority, they are unfairly treated with adverse political abuses, economic moral hazards, and social injustices. Why historical theft? What happened to multiculturalism and federalism? What happened to the protection of minorities? Where are indigenous peoples' rights? Where are equity and equality practices? Where are democratic principles? And most of all, what happened to humanity? We all know that we will never find justice in a world where criminals make the law and run the show. However, today I'd like to focus on historical robbery. I want to shed light on the 5 gates of Harar and set the record straight about the 6th gate, which is a misrepresentation of Harar's identity for about 80 years now. We must refute the misinformation about the names of the 5 gates of Harar and denounce the misrepresentation of the 6th gate in Harar's history. Many Hararis and over 90% of non-Hararis do not know about the illegitimacy of the 6th gate. It is a gate of denial and deception, perpetuated by majority imperialism. Any democratic system that does not start with minority rights is not only hypocritical but also dictatorial. The nicknames are dictated and immorally imposed in the last 136 years. First, let me say a few words about Harar. Bird's eye view of Harar. The fortified, historic, and sacred city of Harar is located in the eastern part of Ethiopia, about 540 kilometers from the capital of Addis Ababa. It is known as the fourth holy city of Islam after Mecca, Medina, and Jerusalem. Harar was a world-class city of knowledge, trade, and administration, as well as innovations and politics before Gondar, Jama, Addis Ababa, and Nairobi, an ancient kingdom or nation-state of over 1,000 years, which was annexed by the imperial forces in 1887. However, among the many contributions the state of Harar made and shaped modern Ethiopia are coin minting, administration and governance structures, farming, organized education systems, manuscript writing, bookbinding, basketry, calligraphy, embroidery, taxation, entrepreneurship, charity organization, hospitality, medicine, law, ethical consultations and advisory systems, as well as architecture, military education, and many more. The inner part of Harar is known as Jogol. Jogol is the fortified historic core of the city surrounded by 3,334 meter, which is a wall with 5 gates. This part treasures a spectacular part of Harar's heritage and defines Harar's identity. It constitutes the DNA of Harari values and preserves the fabrics of Hararis and Islam. Jugol is the soul of Harar. Without Jugol, no Hararis would have existed and Islam could not have spread throughout East Africa. Jugol is a synonym for the land of indigenous Harari people and the capital of the Harla civilization and the nation of the Sultanate of Adal.
Various documents report that there are more than 60 neighborhoods, 99 masjids, and 102 shrines in Harar. Statistically speaking, every fourth house is either a masjid or a place for prayer or a shrine within Juggle. Amazing! An unbelievable number of sites of veneration within Harar, and not surprisingly known as the fourth holy city in the world. Historical tragedies. Expansionism and annexation define Ethiopia. Ethiopia is a manifestation of occupations and an aggregate of annexations. The geopolitics of the 1880s marked the loss of the glorious height of peace and prosperity of diverse people of the Horn, West, and Southern kingdoms. Annexed kingdoms constitute the larger geography of modern-day Ethiopia. January 7, 1887, marked the end of Harar as an independent nation in East Africa. A day marked with atrocities and genocide of the indigenous people of Harar, and continuous marginalization, assimilation, and polarization have reduced Harar to what it is today. Worse off, the narrow streets within Juggle and the streets of Harar witness ethnic cleansing today. Repression symbols are everywhere. Mosques were demolished, Islamic schools were wiped out, and street names changed, including the names of the 5 gates of Harar. A few weeks ago, my friend, his family, and I walked along the streets of Harar and visited historical sites including Jalanko Martyr Square, museums, shrines, masjids, and many more. There's a lot to talk about and write about each. Harar is a legend and historical documents testify. The 5 gates of Harar are 5 in number because they represent the 5 daily Islamic prayers and the 5 pillars of Islam, professing of faith, prayer, charity, fasting, and pilgrimage. The 5 legit gates are Asumbari, Argobari, Suktatbari, Padrobari, and Asmaddin Bari. Behind each gate, there are 5 quarters, administrative entities, with a similar name to each gate. Each quarter is further divided into neighborhoods called toya, which are often named after a Muslim shrine or a place of veneration. Defying this number of gates, the sixth gate was inserted as a distortion of Harar's history and identity. The imperial regime built and opened the sixth gate in 1942 and named it after one of the emperor's sons. The gate was called the Gate of Dukbar in Amharic, and then the military regime renamed it the Gate of Harar in 1968, a complete manipulation, deception, and denial of Harar's history. Behind this illegitimate sixth gate, there is no quarter or administrative entity, but a street called Andinyamangad, Street Number 1 or First Street, stretching to the demolished Islamic cemetery and the occupied Barzak Masjid, which was restructured and used as a Coptic church since 1889. On both sides along First Street, there are several old Harari shops and some bars and restaurants. My friend commented that some Harari shops and houses were confiscated and purposely converted into bars, restaurants, discos, dancing, and drinking ghettos during Haile Selassie's regime. The emperor aimed to persuade Hararis and the Muslim at large to indulge in alcohol and prostitution businesses, a strategy that never worked but increased the influx of settlers within the walls of Jugal to do such un-Islamic businesses. However, such activities partially uprooted Muslim homes that contributed to ethnic cleansing along the street and beyond. The sixth gate effectively taints Harari Islamic traditions and distorts Harari history. Evidently, it is the gate of occupation, the gate of repression, or the gate of pain. Hichnabari. Coming back to the 5 legitimate gates of Harar and their names, their proper Harari names are Asumbari, Argobari, Suktatbari, Padrobari, and Asmandibari. Most of Harar's residents hardly use these names because of unawareness, propaganda, and historical ignorance. Their names were also changed and distorted. They were sadly tagged or nicknamed in different languages. Referring to Afendi Mutaki's book entitled Gay Ethnographic Tales of the Mystic City, these 5 gates are listed as follows. 1. Asmadimbari, Kharahamarresa, Oromo, Shawabar, Amharic, Babun Nasr, Arabic. 2. Asumbari, Kharafallana, Oromo, Fallana Bar, Amharic, and Babul Futh, Arabic. Argobari, Khara Arar, Oromo, Ararbar, Amharic, and Babur Rahma, Arabic. 4. Badrobari, Khara Budawa, Oromo, Budabar, Amharic, and Babul Hikma, Arabic. And 5. Suktat Bari, Khara Sofi, Oromo, Sengabar, Amharic, and Babus Salam, Arabic. None of the names in Oromo or Amharic reflect the true Harari names or the Islamic traditions associated with Jagal. Some of the names are insulting and reflect undesirable religious characteristics. For example, the names given to Badrubari is Kharabudawa or Budabar. It means the road to evil eye. Suktatbari is named Sangabar, which is to say the gate of ox. Asbadnibari, Ashawabar, which is named after the origin of the invaders, and so forth. This is how the genesis of Harar is being altered and distorted. Its identity is gradually wiped out. This reminds me of George Orwell, who rightfully said that the most effective way to destroy people is to deny and obliterate their understanding of their own history, changing their original names to suit the occupiers and victimize the indigenous people of Harar. However, the Arabic names are close to the Harari Islamic traditions, though not exactly matching the Harari names. The Arabic names properly suit and confirm Harar's Islamic heritage and its association with Islam. Asmad-Din Bari is named Babun Nasr in Arabic, which means the gate of victory. As-Sumbari is named Babul Futuh, which means the gate of opening. Argo-Bari is named Babul Rahma, which means the gate of compassion. Badru-Bari is known as Babul Hikmah, which means the gate of wisdom. Suktat-Bari is also known Babul Salam, which means the gate of peace. Noting that even if these Islamic names are translated into Oromo, Amharic, Somali, Afar, and many more languages, they will still reflect Islamic characteristics and traditions. It is well known that the names are an incredibly important part of any societal identity. They carry deep personal, cultural, familial, and historical connections. They also give us a sense of who we are, the communities to which we belong, and our place in the world. There are lots in the names. I would like also to recommend to the Ethiopia Broadcasting Corporation, EBC, which recently opened its branch in Harar, to use the Gate of Victory, Asmad-Din Bari, not the Gate of Duk or Dukbar, as a background picture when it transmits its programs. Rescind the doctrine of expansionism and reflect the true composition of Ethiopia. Use Asmad-Din Bari, the Gate of Victory, Yed al-Bar, as a background picture for your programs. The Gate of Victory is Harar's signature gate. It is an embodiment of Harari architecture and character. The Gate of Victory is a true identity and symbol of Harar and Hararis. Let me conclude today's presentation by quoting a Somali scholar we met in Harar. He said that Hararis are the Gandhi of East Africa, who tirelessly advocate for peaceful resistance against expansionists as well as bringing national and international attention to the much forgotten plight of Harar. We expect all Ethiopians to respect and protect minorities, uphold the truth, support equity, equality, and justice for Hararis and the minorities at large. Written by Professor Abdi Khalil, narrated by Nasab. For more IHMS videos and publications in Harari, Amharic, and English, as well as for donations, visit our website www.ihmshararimedia.com. Thank you again for listening and watching IHMS programs. Assalamu alaikum.
IHMS